So, Metroid, probably one of the biggest names to ever come out of Nintendo. Like Mario and The Legend of Zelda, Metroid is considered a juggernaut in the video game industry, paving the way for many games that have since become some of my personal favorites. Like any other game though, Metroid has its fair share of memorable boss battles, ranging from the disgusting, to the amazing, to the downright infuriating. The Metroid series is jam-packed with all sorts of amazing bosses, and today, as part of my very first ever countdown, I'm gonna tell you guys about my top 5 favorite ever Metroid boss battles. A word of warning though, these are simply my opinions, and of course are in no way the absolute greatest of the great in terms of bosses for the series. Also, I'm only going to be doing one boss per game, since I feel it's better to give every one of the games I enjoy a shot. So, I've gone on babbling long enough, let's get started. You know, Metroid Other M, story-wise, certainly deserves all the backlash it got from fans. Portraying Samus as a whiny child obsessed with the baby Metroid just came off as a half-assed attempt to simplify drama. Needless to say, it backfired. However, for me at least, the gameplay made up for that. While exploring one of the sectors, and after losing contact with Adam, and while on the hunt for the supposed leader, you head into a series of large rooms that seemingly have odd gravity physics. In one section, you're walking upside down, while in the later corridor, you're fighting extremely heavy gravity. One side of these hallways, you enter into a large central room. While on your way to the top of this room, you notice a large machine hanging from the ceiling, and as you try to exit, the machine suddenly attacks. This machine, we find out, is known as the Nightmare, a bioengineered creation made by the Galactic Federation that has the ability to manipulate gravity. The hulking machine suddenly begins attacking you, firing large balls of energy at you. You have to deactivate the gravity warper in order for you and your beams not to fall to the floor below like a giant metal rock. After taking enough punishment, Nightmare falls all the way to the floor below, and you continue onward. However, after the crying for Adam death scene on your way back to the same corridor, Nightmare then abruptly attacks you again. However, now that you have the gravity suit, it goes down quite a bit easier than the first time. So I'm sure some of you are thinking why I love this boss so much. Well, to be honest, other than the fact that this beast is just creepy, powerful, and threatening, it's also because this is the only boss in the Metroid franchise that you fight in the same game twice. I mean, yeah, the argument could be said for Ridley in Prime 3, but that technically is two separate forms of Ridley, so it doesn't count. Plus, with the ability to control gravity, his attacks are even harder to dodge, making it a rather challenging fight if you're not prepared for it. Still an awesome and extremely fun boss nonetheless, and definitely worth its spot here on my countdown. When thinking about who I picked for this slot, I took into account all of the Metroid games there are, and especially where the series got its start. Metroid for the NES was certainly an amazing game for its time. Its non-linear structure would become the mainstay for the entire series. Using your wits and ingenuity to locate all of the secrets of the Zebesian's plan, as well as all sorts of items to aid in your journey, just gave a feeling of exploration and adventure that no game to that point had ever achieved. And at the end of the game, you defeat the cause of all this turmoil and the head of the operation, Mother Brain. However, the fight is very boring, in every sense of the word, sadly. Not much pizzazz in shooting a head in a jar, now is there? So, jump forward 8 years later on a whole new console, and we have Super Metroid. Now, just to be fair, I didn't actually grow up with Super Metroid like many other fans did, and I actually didn't end up playing it until 2011. But even though I arrived at the game so late, I can still see why it's one of the most beloved games of all time. And what better way to end this awesome game than with an epic boss battle? While many people thought at first that Mother Brain was simply going to go through the same strategy as she did in the original game, she instead becomes this giant, hulking dinosaur beast thing that attacks by shooting lasers and for some reason bombs at you. Once you blast its head enough times, the baby Metroid, who's not such a baby anymore, decides to come and attack Mother Brain, stunning her and then heals you. However, Mother Brain isn't exactly done yet, as she shrugs off the paralysis and attacks and kills the poor baby Metroid. With its dying cry, it gives you the Hyper Beam, allowing you to lay absolute waste to this disgusting abomination once and for all. And of course, per tradition, a timer kicks in, giving you just enough time to run from the planet as it completely explodes, ending the game. I gotta say, this is one great way to end the game. However, the reason that this battle is so low though is because I didn't actually play Super Metroid until a few years ago. Yeah, I know it's kinda unfair to rate it this low because of that. But considering that I played over half of the other Metroid games, including all the 3D titles, before this game, this battle just feels lackluster by comparison. But even still, the battle is still fun and certainly climatic. A great end to an even greater game. Metroid Prime 3 presented many more story elements into the Metroid universe. From character interaction to voice acting, and showcasing actual living people this time around that aren't just mentioned. Metroid Prime 3 is certainly more lively than other games. I've heard many fans of the series didn't like this feature, since Metroid was always a series where you were sent into another world all alone with no one to talk to. For me, however, the interactions with the NPCs truly make the world feel like more than just a desolate wasteland, even though I do also prefer the isolated atmosphere of the previous games. Nevertheless, the characters, while shallow at times, are enjoyable, especially the hunters. Rundus, Gore, and Gandrayda are 3 bounty hunters also hired by the Galactic Federation at the start of the game to investigate the Aurora units going out of whack. And after finishing the prologue level, you find out that each of them have gone missing. You eventually fight each of them at certain points in the game while under possession of Dark Samus through the Phazon seed that she implanted in them. The first one you fight, Rundus, who you fight very early on in Bryo, will give you the Ice Missile. Gore, who you fight midway through Elysia, you obtain the Plasma Beam from. And Gandrayda, who you fight on the Pirate Homeworld, gives you the Grapple Voltage. And when picking my favorite of the 3, I gotta give spot number 3 to Gandrayda. I'm not sure what it is about this battle I love so much. Her transformations, the character herself, or because of the various different strategies you can employ when fighting her. You fight Gandrayda in a large area surrounded by the acid rain. The rain leaves you unable to venture further from the center of the arena, forcing you to fight with little breathing room. And using her acrobatic skills, she can easily dodge almost all of your attacks, even missiles. After dealing enough damage, she can activate Hyper Mode, allowing her to phase out of the visible spectrum, forcing you to use your X-ray visor in order to see her. After you defeat her, Dark Samus suddenly comes and absorbs her, and in the aftermath you receive the Grapple Voltage. Which, while only useful on rare occasions, mainly when it comes to puzzle solving later in the game for expansion hunting, is still a cool weapon. But frankly, I don't care how lame the weapon is, this battle, for me at least, more than makes up for it. Metroid Prime is one of my favorite games of all time, and for a series that should have jumped into the 3D world for several years prior to the game's release, Retro Studios still managed to revitalize Samus' video game career with this fantastic game. And along with the returning weapons, along with some brand new ones, Metroid Prime also introduced some rather unique boss battles. However, not counting the boss battles you face very early on in order to get your weapons back after you lost them at the beginning of the game in the prologue level, the game doesn't have that many bosses. Some of the bosses, in fact, like the Elite Pirates and the Adult She-Goths, become regular enemies, so they can't really be counted. So who can I put at this spot? Well, based on my own personal opinion, as well as its power, ferocity, and having it stand out from every boss in the entire series, I decided to go with the Phazon-fueled rock monster known as Zodyrus. Yeah, I know, some of you might be thinking, why didn't I put Meta Ridley at this spot? Well, while I do love that fight, Ridley himself has been fought in almost all the Metroid games at least once, and fighting him in so many games kinda takes from the wow factor of the boss. Even though Metroid Prime was my first Metroid game, so fighting Ridley this time was the first time I ever fought him, since I've played many other Metroid games since then, the Ridley fight in this game kinda just seems lackluster by comparison. Zodyrus, however, is a unique and rather creative boss. After heading your way through the many areas of the Space Pirates base on Pandrana and collecting various power-ups, you head your way to a large open room to find this giant pile of Phazon-fueled rocks laying in the center. However, upon closer inspection, the rocks begin to take on a life of their own, forming together to create this massive, semi-humanoid looking beast. Now, Zodyrus isn't exactly deadly, and his strategy isn't exactly difficult, but it's still pretty fun. You need to use the thermal visor and strike the glowing areas with whatever weapon you can muster. Then, when the shell shatters, you need to destroy the joint now that it's exposed. And you'll need to do this about 7 more times until it's finally defeated. However, once you've done all that, he'll collapse and explode, revealing the Spider Ball. Out of all the Metroid games, I gotta say Metroid Prime 2 is damn near my favorite. While there are many things in Prime 1 that I like more than in Prime 2, like the lack of ammo for my beam weapons, or the huge amount of ways you can get things early in the game, there's just something about Prime 2 that I like more. Its creepy setting, dank atmosphere, and the constant sense that there is something lurking around the next corner just gives this game a feel that is all its own. I could even compare it to the kind of feel you'd have in a Silent Hill or Resident Evil game. And of course, fittingly so, my favorite boss from the Metroid series hails from this game. And what is my number one pick, you may ask? Well, since I've taken into careful consideration out of all the bosses in the game, even though there are many of them I like and some I just can't stand, I've decided to go with my favorite of them all, Quadraxis. This has got to be the greatest boss in Metroid history to me. It's the last of the bosses that you face before heading to the last area of the game to beat the final boss, and by God does it show. The minute you enter into this arena, you are just in awe at how massive this mech is. The enormous Temple Guardian is also the biggest boss in the entire series, and this giant behemoth shows its power from the very start of the fight. Its main choice of attacks are various laser weapons, missiles, and even the Annihilator beam, making it a pretty formidable in combat. Its only weakness in its full body form are its knee and foot joints, which you must destroy in order to disable them. After defeating the body, it falls to the ground, showing that its head is still working and also connected still to the body via a sonic link. You need to activate the Echo Visor here to disable the connection between the head and body. However, even after doing this, the head is somehow still working and still hunting after you. Once you stun the head, you finally end its rampage by jumping off of the body and bombing the head twice. After doing this, the head and body explode, revealing the Annihilator. This may not be epic per se, and can be a bit long if you don't know what you're doing, but it's certainly a fitting end to the Sanctuary Fortress as a whole. An epic end to the former tech center of the Luminoth, and absolutely deserving of my number one spot. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a message down in the comments section below telling me what your top 5 favorite Metroid bosses are. Likes and subscriptions are always appreciated, and until next time, I will see you in the next video.